Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Graybeards. I'm Wayne. My co-host over here is
Bug,
Bug, aka
bug,
Ernie.
AKA. Yes.
Well, today we're gonna have I am not. I'm not gonna say I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Today's on
Yeah.
conspiracy. Did we go to
Hmm.
the moon? I'm here
Good
to say
question.
yes, and Ernie doesn't
Hmm.
believe that to be it. So,
Yeah, like I was saying, I'm just skeptical. I can't outright just disclaim it, but I'm a skeptic. Got a few uh things that concern me about the moon landing, and we'll talk about that, during this episode, why I'm skeptical about it, going to the moon. Um, if you want me to lead off with some of my skepticism,
well, I would
I
say
will.
yes. I mean, I got my little note. I don't know if it'll show up on here because it's on a piece of
No, it
paper.
didn't show up. It was
I
no.
got a few things, why they say that it
Mhm.
didn't go to the moon, and
Yeah,
then why, some say they did,
yeah,
that the conspiracy theorists say, hey, no, 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 no.
yeah, yeah. You're gonna have those folks out there, conspiracy theorists. Now, you know. With that being said, they're saying that. I guess I haven't read on much what the conspiracy theorists think, but they the government some kind of ways uh cooked up this thing, you know, to, you know, show that we're superior to the Soviet Union, I guess at the time. We just made it up. We couldn't do it, so we made it up in Hollywood, right? Okay, all right. So, but
Yeah.
my skepticism comes from a different, slightly different point of view. I'm just looking at, was it possible? You know what I'm saying? Just was it possible to go to the moon based on, the time frame, the era that we was living in? Did they have the technology to do it? Did they have the did they have the information to do it? You know what I'm saying? Did they have the just like say like coming to America, right? Way back with 14. I'm jumping around going 14 in the 1400s, right? They sent out a probe. They sent out a probe to investigate the Americas, right? What they didn't believe they didn't believe let's go they didn't believe that the earth was round. They believed it was flat. So them guys went they sent a probe out. So they went out there, they had to uh they kind of winged it. I'm thinking they went out there, went across the Atlantic. Hey, look what we found. We found another darn continent, right? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So,
They didn't believe him.
okay, you
They
don't,
didn't believe it, but
yeah, they didn't believe
there
it.
was
Yeah,
conspiracy theory said, oh, you could have got those rocks and soil samples from anywhere.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So, okay, now to go to the moon, right, from Earth, you got to send a probe out, and
What
you
do you
got
mean
to you
send a
got to send a
probe
probe.
out?
Say again.
What do you mean send a probe out?
You got to send some. You got to try to figure out what the conditions are, so you can
Well, they did do
prepare.
that.
Right. You got to do that. And did they have the instruments available at the time to detect the conditions that was out in space? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And not only
they
that,
did.
okay, now you got to duplicate what you found out in space on Earth.
Sure.
And that's a problem with me. I don't think they could a little bit of reading that I've done over the past is that those conditions are very hard to duplicate, next to impossible to duplicate those conditions on Earth. Now we know we've been led to believe or taught in school that we have a sphere out there that protects us from the radiation from the sun, right? Uh, yeah, the Earth has the
I,
Earth has
I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm gonna give you your say because
yeah.
all right, okay.
Yeah, yeah, the Earth is protected. We have a level of protection that protects us from the harsh radiation of the sun. Now, the moon doesn't have the atmosphere that Earth has.
Hmm.
So I'm guessing there's virtually no protection from the harsh conditions from the sun if you're on the moon.
Yeah,
We don't,
you're right.
I know I've been,
It doesn't
go
have
ahead, go ahead.
it's the Earth's atmosphere that protects us from that
Yes,
radiation, right?
yeah, exactly. And the moon virtually has no
Exactly.
atmosphere.
It's a dead planet virtually is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
in a sense.
So, and like I said, I'm just like we're just two gray beards talking, right? I'm
Yeah,
not a scientist in
I'm
it.
gonna put it out right now. I'm no expert. I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm no
same.
scientist, I'm no NASA engineer, aeronautical engineer,
Right,
whatever. I am
right.
I am not that, knowledgeable. I can just say that what
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people that feel, they get wrapped up. We're talking about conspiracies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody says, well, I mean, how many years ago we believed the earth was flat? And you said it, what, 1400s, whatever, 1500s.
Yeah. There
They,
were other societies that knew that the Earth was round, but
yeah.
the particular one at the time
Well,
believed
there
that
were
it was flat.
scientists. They could see, the horizon has they were like, I can't
Curvature.
see. It's only as, we're only as smart as what we can see and, hear, feel, taste,
Detect
whatever.
with our five senses, right?
Seven senses, yeah. Isn't it seven?
Okay, seven.
You know,
I'll go with that.
or six. I don't know,
Maybe.
whatever. Feel,
Well, the
touch.
six is
You got touch,
that
feel,
gut
or
feeling.
touch and feel. That's kind of the same one, right?
Yeah. You got
Well, either
touch,
way,
you got taste, you got
yeah,
hearing, sight,
yeah.
etc. Yeah. But nevertheless, yeah. So to prepare for this moon uh landing, you're gonna actually send a human out there, you know,
Maybe
in
it is five.
this
You're right. I can only think of
yeah,
five.
it's fine.
Yeah,
It's
five.
fine. And then
Oh,
you
I
got the sixth
remember it was like
sense.
the sixth sense. The
Yeah.
sixth. I was saying there's like the sixth sense. When you right.
Right, right. So yeah, so that's part of my skepticism. We're talking 1969.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
They were
saying?
doing that before. In their mid sixties. They were. Think
Mhm.
well. Some. I don't think they got the computer technology initially. They were like, oh, they didn't have the computer that could do it. They don't have whatever. Well, in 64, they got the computer, right? The means. I mean, obviously, this little, even though it don't show up on the screen for whatever reason.
And there it
Oh,
is.
yeah, this little cell phone here,
Yeah.
it had, I forget what people have said, how many thousands of times the computing capability,
Hmm.
50, 61 years
Yeah.
ago, whatever.
51, 55. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So supposedly there's more information capable storage capability in your phone than what they had in the mainframes back in the 60s, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they had to rely on some serious math,
Yeah,
which is
well, they
cool.
did initially for designing what the launch parameters were going to be in the orbits and all that stuff. It was all done with math. I seen the movie, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
I watched a few. Um, Buzz Aldridge was a very good source, one of the living. I think he's still around. I'm not sure.
mhm, mhm.
Um, that he was there. He did that, right? And I will tell you right now, the reason why I don't believe it was a conspiracy
Mhm.
was the fact that it costs so much. There's so much information about the Saturn program, the Saturn rockets that took them to space, that and everything is there. The information is there, what they did, what they had, NASA in the 60s employed for this Apollo program, and NASA employed 400,000 people,
Yeah.
400,000.
Yeah.
Yet none of them, there's maybe one or two Luna bins out there that Oh, it's not possible. There's one guy I watched. He was one of the, I don't know, some kind of engineer. He lives in a trailer with a bunch of cats now out in the desert. He has
Yeah.
like zero credibility in my mind. The dude is
You
seriously,
better not talk about the moon landing, bro, or
yeah,
you'll be living in a trailer with a bunch of cats.
yeah, apparently, yeah. And it's like, and he, I think he was driving, some old 70s car. I don't know. I just
Hmm.
question if this guy's got it all in the,
Yeah,
in his brain. There's
yeah. I got you.
tons of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I say, just going, what I would consider logic. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You and I, ex-military guys, right? Now we know that the places that we've deployed to when we was active duty have extreme conditions, right? We can't manufacture equipment that can really deal with those harsh conditions. You know what I'm saying? The,
Mhm.
the the sand is so fine, it gets into everything. Extreme temperature stuff tends to break down quicker than they do over here in the stateside, right? I know, like you said, you got 400,000 employees that was working for NASA at the time. But my retort to that would be, you got levels of security, right? Or levels where people are privileged to different information. Not all 400,000 had the same access. You know what I'm saying?
No, sure,
You
yeah.
know, you got the inner, just like we did in the military.
Oh yeah, he was
You
getting
got
obviously, yeah.
secret.
But
Yeah.
I mean, there's this one guy. He's created a vacuum. He puts his hand in a glove in this self-made vacuum chamber, right?
Mhm.
He says, but he puts the vacuum and he says the glove you can't hardly do nothing. There's no way these guys could operate a camera, let alone take a picture and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Uh, it just shows to show you the level of ignorance this guy has, right? He didn't say that. Well, the cameras that they used were specially designed so they didn't have to push a little. They weren't doing this thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
They didn't see what they were shooting. They just had it mounted on the side. Let's see, it would be on the side of their suit, and they had a huge button, and all they had to do is push the button, and they set it to whatever. There's different settings
Yeah.
that you could put for whatever you're taking.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of the film that they did, people that were allowed to see is just this huge, not a wide angle lens on there so they could see what they weren't looking, they're putting in their brain while we had to, cameras were only as good as technology. They were pretty good.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong, the film and all that stuff. I'm watching this guy talking about these cameras. This is one of the things. There's like, who took the picture? How did this happen?
Yeah.
The shadows are all wrong. Why is it they're
Yeah.
on the dark
I've
side of
heard
the
stuff like
moon?
that. Yeah, I've
How
heard
is
that
all
kind of
this
stuff.
light?
Yeah. But what about speaking of the cameras, right? What about the exposure of the film? You know what I'm saying? You take the picture, is it immediately ruined? You know what I'm saying? The film, I mean, you got the radiation. Was this some special space camera that
Yeah, the
I'm
cameras they were designed to operate. From what they understood, what the environment was going to be. They hadn't been there yet, right?
right?
So they overbuilt these cameras, right? I
Hmm.
mean, thing was like, this huge monstrous camera
Hmm.
that just, there's if I would tell everybody if they don't really believe we went to the moon, then they should just, get out. YouTube, there's a ton of, whatever side you want. If you believe it's a
Right.
conspiracy that
Yeah.
they actually went, I
Yeah.
mean, I can only tell you is that we will really never know. Most of the people that went,
Yeah. I
or
think we will, Elon Musk is getting ready to they're trying to go back to the moon, right?
mhm.
And I'm saying that, put my skepticism aside. They're trying to return to that, but they're having extreme difficulties getting back, making, duplicating. And this is where I got some of the things I came across. Like talking, the other day, we was talking about going back to the moon.
Mhm.
They've already done it. I would imagine they would become more and more efficient at going since they've been, what, I think 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, well,
But now,
we're our one commenter that we, on our last video, the one person that actually took the time to comment.
yeah,
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. He had that one guy, the engineer from somewhere in Alabama, whatever
yeah,
we were watching,
hmm
talking about whether the next program is Artemis, right?
hmm
They're
yeah,
doing it totally different, right? They're doing a different, um, it's not the same orbit type.
different kind of approach to
Yeah,
the
it's like
situation.
he was using terms like LLO or something like that.
hmm
Then there was the ORH or whatever. I'm speaking out
Yeah,
about not knowing what I'm really talking about, but it's a whole different program. They plan to be there more than just go there, get down, get up, and come back,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They're gonna,
Um,
yeah.
they're
Would you understand the objective of what did it prove going to the moon? I mean, we spent
well,
a lot of money.
but you touched on it earlier, right? You said that we were in this space race with the Russians. The Russians had 19, it was in the late 50s, either 56 or 57, way before, I was even a twinkle in either my parents' eyes, whatever. Uh, the Russians launched and put the first satellite, Sputnik. They launched that
Mhm.
and put it in orbit. And we were like, oh shit. Pardon my French for those that don't. That was a wake up call for us that the Russians or the Soviets, which go with that term, they
Yeah,
were the Soviet Union at the time. Um, took were like we're gonna they knew the next frontier, and they wanted to be on the cutting edge of it because of the ballistic missiles that were in
mhm,
develop on both sides of the Cold War, because we
mhm.
were really in the Cold War at the time.
So since they launched this, they put a man in orbit, right? So that was the thought. Do you think the thought process was like, okay, you guys need to bow down. We can put some mugs in orbit. We're the superior.
Yeah, well, they had the capability to, they got a satellite in space. I don't know what Sputnik's capabilities were. It's probably pretty
Yeah,
primitive. It
yeah.
was probably just proof that we can do it. The first space
hmm
jump, in my opinion.
hmm Okay. Yeah.
What was his
So,
name? Yuri Gagarin or Gagarin or something like that.
yeah.
I pronounce it was the first person to orbit the Earth.
hmm
The Russian or Soviet.
Yeah. So by us going to the moon much further than the Russians ever went, right? We proved that we were superior to them. We don't
Yeah,
not
in
only put
our
a man
mind,
out
we
there,
said we're superior. We've been to the moon. We got this
we've been to
down.
the moon. We
But
got a
is
man on the
and
moon.
I would probably say is you know superior. That's is a weak.
Technologically, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
we're
saying?
just. I think it would just gave us a level, gave us an edge maybe, and at least prove that we were
Psychological.
equal, right?
Yeah. Not
That
only that's
you
like
ain't.
spiking the football in the end
Yeah,
zone. We
yeah. It
we
was
went
like
we bounced around on the
yeah,
moon.
we did a pick six, and if you use the sports terminologies, yeah. Um, but the thing that gets me is that there were 6 times we landed on the moon, right? Six. They don't
Right.
really talk about the other five. It's always a big deal with the first one. It was first moon
Yeah.
landing.
Yeah.
It just crazy how, and I get it. They're talking. Some of the things they talk about. We all saw the rocket take off, right? We saw it live.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I was 4, I think, maybe
I was
5.
four for the first one, but I think I remember
4.
the I don't know, the one in 1972. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
That's
don't
when
know
I
what.
was it began to affect me and what I was doing, Like we
Oh yeah.
spoke about the cartoons last week, right?
Hmm.
And I remember this doggone trip to the moon interrupted all of that. I mean, it was on like every day, constantly. It dominated the news, back in 1972. I think that's the one that I remember.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's the one I remember. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That yeah, my parents had just moved. Pops had just built our first house. We was grew up with my grandmother, living with her, and so I remember watching it when we was in the new house, and that was in 1972, and that was like I think we moved in the summer, I believe, of 72, and I think they went to the moon. I think it was in December or something,
Mhm.
and that thing just dominated the airways,
Yeah, I mean,
and you know
out of the three channels we get that we were watching, it was on every one of them. So
every
yeah,
channel, man.
yeah, there
So
was no yeah, that was what was on. So if you were watching TV, it was a big deal. I mean, even at 69, I think was it 72 the next one? I don't know. I thought there might have been some in between there.
mhm,
Um, but I think even the samples they brought back, right? People have been studying them since they've come back, right?
mhm,
And there were some things that you know, you talk about radiation, right? That, if you look at the first return, when they first came back from the moon,
mhm,
the astronauts came off of the they when they had kind of quarantined them. They had to wear masks and had these suits on, right? Now, when they were pulled out of the capsule from where, landed in the ocean, but once they were the whole time until they could be thoroughly checked for, like you said, radiations and some kind of viruses or anything that they may have contributed or not contributed, but
contracted. Yeah,
contacted or
yeah.
you know
I got you.
have been exposed to. So they went through all. They found it was minimal anything. And the argument about the radiation, right? The solar
Mhm,
flares, even there was a concern because like you said, they don't have the protective atmosphere on the moon like
mhm.
we do here on Earth. So you said um, they would have had some protection from the aircraft. That's why it was all had that like foil on the side of it. I think was the
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm,
protection. They
yeah.
thought that would give it refract the
Mhm,
radiation or
mhm,
what have you, solar flare. And the other contingency was one of the reasons where they were at, they had places they could get behind rocks or what have you, from a
yeah.
solar flare.
Yeah.
Things that they don't
Yeah.
talk about, they were doing behind the scene, like you said. Not everybody's, we always question why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Maybe
Yeah.
it's because we don't see the big picture when you talk about the 400,000 employees at NASA at the time that were all working on this program.
Mhm,
Um, and
yeah.
people are going to believe what they want to believe, right? I can't change that.
True.
I'm not the
That's true.
some people enjoy the guess of it. There's no right, wrong answer. You
Mhm,
can't, and there's some things, and the one thing, to give some validity to the conspiracy is the one thing that I find is that should be more of a dust crater, right? For when the
yeah.
lander come down, there should be more of a,
Mhm,
in my mind, right?
mhm,
My mind that were they're thinking because they watched the movie in 1950s Flash Gordon, the rockets blasting the whole time all the way down. There should be this huge dust crater. Well, that's not
well,
the
let me,
case because there's
let
there's
me
no gravity
jump
there,
over
right?
there.
The very little gravity. They cut the engine well before they touched down. They didn't have it at the full thrust the whole way down, right?
Mhm,
And there is
yeah.
evidence that there is some of a dust, where not that's
Yeah. It's a depression. I saw that, and it
yeah,
makes sense, to be honest with you.
yeah,
You didn't have the gravitational pull on the moon that you would have on the Earth. You didn't need all of that,
yeah,
And the moon
yeah.
appears to be a solid rock. There's
Well, they didn't
I
know
think the
what they were.
astronauts found out that there was only 6 inches of dust on the moon. You know what I'm saying? So, and I
Because
guess this dust that it does have just comes from space, just
no,
space dust. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, well, that was people talked about that too. They thought maybe when they got there, that when they stepped off the lunar lander, that they could go up to their waist in dust, this dusty dust. They had no idea, right?
Hmm.
I mean, that because they could only observe, they see all these pock marks.
Hmm.
When you look at the surface of the moon, it is just littered with pock marks from
Yeah.
asteroids or meteors or what have you.
Hmm.
And that's the dust that you see from previous impacts that have, oof, you know, that's
Hmm.
there's we create as our civilization, we have an atmosphere that's going to create dust, that's going to move dust. And every time a truck or a car drives down the road or planes taking off, we create dust, and we don't even have a lot of dust.
Yeah,
There's
it's
areas we
true.
have, you go out in a sandy desert, it's like,
Mm.
where's this
Yeah,
fine powdery dust that they were stepping on all over on the moon? It doesn't exist on, on the moon here on Earth.
yeah,
The,
yeah.
there's some
Now,
silt areas that from water or whatever, but yeah, sure.
mhm, yeah, yeah, our atmosphere. But that raises another question, right? You know, you've heard the term dune buggy, right? Dune buggy. You never heard of dune buggy? You've
Of
heard
course
of
I
that.
have.
Come
What
on.
does that got to do with a lunar rover or the
Here we
moon?
go. My question is the dunes that were on the moon. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the term we
And
give because we didn't know really what to call it. We called
could
it.
be. Yeah. I mean, were they dunes? Were they actually dunes? Were they piles or mounds of sand? Or what were they? Were they actually rocks covered by sand? You know what I'm saying? One aspect, you got the small impression where the our spacecraft took off and landed. It didn't. Everybody was like, "Oh, the crater should have been huge, right?" And it
No,
wasn't just amount of six
no.
inches, however deep it was, right? But then in another aspect, you got a pile. You got piles of you got dunes. You got space dust dunes. Just a just a
Well, I
question.
can see how that could be created from you get the blast of any kind of. I mean, like I said, it's just tons of these little whatever. So,
Hmm.
but on
Yeah,
that note, we have a few minutes left. I
yeah.
don't think we're going to solve
You
or take
never have
because
enough time.
not enough time, man. I mean, this is a conspiracy
Yeah.
that's been going on for decades, and it will continue on. You're not going to, you're not going to convince uh, a conspiracy that is true or false without
Yeah.
actual evidence, and the evidence is out there. China, I think Japan have flown over and taken pictures. Satellites have taken pictures of the landing. You can see where they walked. You can see where they drove. It's there. They didn't
Yeah.
have they
I've
didn't have sent some down there just to remotely walk around randomly on the moon. That didn't happen. People were there. The stuff is
Yeah, all
still
right. We
there
got
from when
this.
they landed. The lunar lander is still there.
Oh, that's
I mean, it's
that's a good question.
indisputable proof that they've from other countries. It's only us and our pea brains, in my opinion, that are going, it's a conspiracy. We've never been. Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah,
times.
I would say on that what you're talking about, I say we should maybe have another segment one day, revisit this with the proof. You know what I'm
Oh, I'm
saying?
just saying, in my opinion, we went 6 times. The proof is there. The photos from other countries, independent, one that have more to gain by disproving it, and they can't because the evidence is there. The visual items are there. The footprints are still there. The tracks from the lunar rover are still visible. But on
Mm.
that, I'll give you the last words, and then you can sign us out, Ernie. Give me about a minute.
All right. I'm gonna take about 20 seconds and then we'll let you do your
All right.
okay. Buzz Aldridge, right?
Mhm.
He planted a flag. He says, "Hey man, when I took off, I saw the flag. It blowed over. I mean that's feasible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna just throw out. I'm gonna throw my glasses. You know how my eyesight is. Say the flag blew over, right?
Mhm.
My skepticism is, how did we test for this moon landing? That's a big thing. And why is it so hard to go back? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not hard to
With the
go back.
technology that we have today.
It's not hard
You
to
know.
go back. All right. I very good points.
Mhm,
It's not hard to go back.
mhm.
We could do it easily in the same configuration, but they're doing something different. But on that
Right.
note, let me know what you think in the comments. Click that button if you liked what we had to say. Subscribe if you want. But other than that, appreciate everybody and
See you guys
have a
next week.
great day. And we're out
Yes,
here.
sir.